Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltesiak, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast, part of the Minute Media Podcast Network. The Detroit Lions are now in a new, grittier era, and we look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players, gaining more insight on what makes this team go. Welcome to another episode. In episode 255, we're going to catch up with Detroit Lions legend, former wide receiver Herman Moore. We're going to talk Lions football, what he's looking for as the Lions are gearing up for the transition to 2026. Plus, we'll discuss some of Herman's personal experiences, including his upcoming College Hall of Fame induction. That and more. Let's get to it, Lions fans.
This is James Williams, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
Folks, our show is brought to you by our friends at Roaster Jack Coffee Company out of Traverse City, Michigan. Since 1999, they've been roasting premium beans from small farms around the world. Fresh to order, just for you. And the only thing better than great coffee is great coffee with a discount. Go to roasterjack.com, use the code LIONS, he'll get you 20% off your order. Now here's my interview with Herman Moore. Joining me today is Detroit Lions legend, former wide receiver Herman Moore. Herman, great to connect with you again and talk Lions football.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thank you for making the time. I appreciate that. Now, you're getting pretty regular on the podcast circuit these days. In addition to being behind Lions Nation Unite, you're now even more of a regular on your show, Route 84. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about each of these projects you've got going on?
Yeah, so with the Lions Nation, I started that a few years ago, and it was really it's kind of a gift to the Lions fans who it's a dedicated platform specifically for those that want to talk about Lions. They want to get some information or get some of our take on it. I make appearances on that platform all the time, but we really look at it being one that we wanted to have it evolve based on the innovation and suggestions based on our fan base. So that's been a great project to work with and work with a lot of different content creators and people who are very loyal to the Lion fan base. The other one is getting on, creating my own shows like Route 84 is really just having it go a little bit beyond just the Detroit Lions and just beyond sports sometimes. But for the most part, working with co-host Anthony, and he and I, we talk about a variety of topics that allow me to, talk about things that are a little bit more diverse than just talking just X's and O's all the time.
All right. Well, thanks for that little explanation to the listeners. I've actually been checking out Route 84. You guys do hit a variety of topics, and we're going to talk at least about one of those topics later in the show today. So let's get into some Lions talk. Let's briefly talk about the 2025 season. I know it's in the past, but you and I spoke last spring about it. There was a lot of optimism in the air. Now, we didn't think they'd get back to 15 wins, but we were thinking double-digit wins, a playoff run. Obviously, those things didn't happen. Other than, obviously, the record coming up short, what is it that you felt maybe prevented that from happening?
Well, a lot of it, fans will point to injuries and the lack that they didn't have certain players available. I mean, as I tell everyone, that's going to happen every year. There's no guarantee, even going into 2026 season, that you're going to have certain players available. You just don't know how training camp happens or OTAs or any of those things or early games. But I think it was just that it just felt different. I think I won't say the sense of urgency was different or complacency was there, but it just seemed that they weren't as in sync as we've seen in the past. Some people will count and say it was Ben Johnson. It was the fact that they lost their defensive coordinator and Aaron Glenn. But, those changes have to be averted. And right now with the Lions, I think they have the talent. I just don't think the consistency that we've seen over the years was there. And then also the disruption when Coach Campbell had to make the calls. It's not that he's not capable. I just think it was just a position that he was basically put into, and he had to do it at a critical time of the season when the team really need to have wins and stay on top and stay competitive in the NFC North.
All right. Well, though the team didn't end where we wanted them to do, but they did end with a winning record. They ended with a win. So let's end this part on a positive side. What did you see at the end of 2025 or at any point in the 2025 season that gives you hope going into 2026 offseason?
what I love most about this team is just the fact that their resiliency, the fact that they're very coachable. They stay together as a team. We saw some things, kind of creeping there a little bit as far as making sure certain players get. You look at David Montgomery, you look at Jamison Williams, and some guys that you're wanting to see touch the ball more. Maybe some defensive players you want to have differently on that rotation or giving them opportunity on the defensive line and so on and so forth. But for the most part, this was a team that, despite some of the one of the toughest schedules, but also the fact that they did have injuries and they did have disruption in the offensive play calling because of the change that was made there with the OC, that the team stayed together. And I think they were confident coming back. I thought they played well enough down the stretch to have that confidence that they need coming into the 2026 season, and know that if they clean up a few things, they get back to consistency, they're still going to be a top 10, possibly top 5 team in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree with those sentiments. I think a lot of fans do, that there is optimism because there are so many great pieces in place. So let's move into that 2026 talk. We still have free agency. We still have the NFL draft. There's a lot of moving parts before we even know what the team's going to look like. But before we get to those things, what areas of need on the team do you think are most pressing for the Lions in your eyes?
Well, one is to continue to look at solidification of the secondary. I mean, they're players that they have on the perimeter that can step in. You have Terry and Arnold that you're really trying to make sure he has a place there, and that he continues to have some growth and upside. He's a high draft pick. We saw what happened when they had Jeff Okudah. They stuck with them as long as they could. They've stuck with some guys as long as they can. With Terry and Arnold, I think it's still, the jury's still out a little bit in terms of how will he perform over time, and what would his growth cycle look like based on him going against top tier talent on a regular basis, week in and week out, and being available. When you look at the linebacking position, that's one to keep an eye on. Are they going to be moving places? Jack Campbell did extremely well. He has been Pro Bowl caliber since day one. I think he's finally got his recognition, and people realize just really how good he really is and how much he anchors that second level of the defensive side. So I think looking there, you may want to just keep an eye on that. But I think secondary, and then looking along the line itself, they're always going to be looking for another complementary end, depending on the situation that they have with Muhammad. So it's a matter of how do you fill those pieces? You only get one draft. The free agency, everybody's going after everyone. There's new money that's available. The cap has been made available for not just the Lions but other teams. So the money's going to be there. Now it's the attraction. I think the Lions are still an attractive team for free agency, and I think that they still understand how to develop talent better than a lot of teams in the NFL. So no matter what their picks look like and whoever they get, I think they're going to be fine. I know there's been a lot of chatter about Brad Holmes, and I won't say necessarily putting him on the hot seat, but saying, okay, now he's got to have some more wins. He's got to have a few more standouts that happen in the draft. But it's not just Brad Holmes. It's going to be the entire scouting department, it's the personnel department, and the coaching staff that have to weigh in to make sure that they don't have any misses.
Yeah, you're leading me right into my next question, Herman, because there is likely to be more turnover on this team player-wise than there has been in the last couple of years. Starting positions, so depth is going to be really important. But beyond just the player acquisition, because that is going to get the headlines. That's what most people are going to talk about. But what else needs to take place for the Lions to get back to the win total, the style of play from 2023, 2024? Is it the drafting, or is it some of the coaching, or what is it in your eyes that might need to adjust?
I think they're just going to have to make plays, and they're going to I put it like this. They're not going to creep up on anybody. They're not going to catch any team off guard. They know what the team is capable of. They know what the staff is looking like. You're going to have any of your position coaches that do well, potentially maybe targeted as being the next OC, DC, head coach, another team, whatever it may be. So you don't even know if you can go beyond a year. So you have to. It used to be they had a runway. They had no one was coming after any of the coaching staff people. No one was coming after the free agents for the Lions. It hadn't been established, but now that it's established and people know that there's a winning formula, and that formula always starts with players. And now that they have players and they see that those coaches were instrumental in doing that, they become attractive too. So now there's all types of things that become distractions and things you have to be kind of conscious of that you didn't have to strategically plan for in the previous years when they were on the uptick and they were trying to get to the point of stability. So, when I look at them, I think to get back to that, they're going to have to block out the noise. They're going to have to get players who are going to have to play beyond just what we've seen. If you think they've played well, you think they've been Pro Bowl, they now have to become all pros on a perennial basis. They have to become conversation pieces for offensive or defensive player of the year. They have to be talked about in the manner of having players to say that's a potential candidate for an MVP. Until they don't get that type of recognition or people having that type, that'll tell you how they're playing, because this is a team that is not made up of make believe superstars. These are legit guys who can go other teams and start and excel. So they have the talent. So that's no longer an excuse. They've been developed. That's no excuse. You have the coaches that you've wanted. You've had those strings of success. You've been in even better situations in having a path going all the way to the Super Bowl that had to come through Detroit. That's the best case scenario with a bye, and you're booted out in the first round. So the pressure will start to mount because you've had all the scenarios from underdog to being the favorite, and yet you've had something stumble along the way in some form or fashion. So I think they got to block all that out and realize it's now or never. And I don't say that like in a desperate situation, Matt. I say that in the sense of urgency, because as we start to see, the more and successful you become, the less it's harder to keep your talent together. It's hard to keep those teams together that you built over a period of time.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It is like every year, everyone says, every year's a new year, and that makes a lot of sense. But the Lions have risen up to that point where people are coming after the coaching staff. I mean, people were coming after Ben Johnson before the Lions had even made the playoffs. There was chatter, and it was like, can we hold on to him? So if they even sustain a level of success that's, above average, you're going to have people picking at that roster and at the coaching staff. And I think the biggest thing we're seeing right now is another changeover at offensive coordinator with Drew Petzing being brought in. And so, Herman, let me ask you this. A new offensive coordinator coming in, what's it like for a player when a team switches offensive coordinators? Is it always something dramatic, or sometimes is it more subtle?
It can be either. It's hard to tell where the position is going to fall. You get a new offensive coordinator. There's a different philosophy that's brought in. That's one thing you have to manage. There's a new playbook, not necessarily that you're running different routes. It's just a combination of terminology, routes, and the way in which those are combined, and formations and things of that nature you have to learn. But then even if you stick within the system that you have and that person is learning a system that's already familiar, then someone's going to be behind the curve catching up. It doesn't matter which way you do it. Either everyone's going to do that, the OC plus the offense plus the coordinators, plus the unit coaches, or it's going to be we're going to keep the same system. Now we're going to bring this person up to speed and let them innovate within a system that we've already operated with, which is less learning curve, because now it's just one person versus everyone. But you're the weakest link, but you're supposed to be the leader of that unit in terms of how you dial up philosophy and get the team ready. So there's going to be some things they got to work through. This is professional sports. They do this all the time. They're acclimated to it. I'm not concerned if they're going to catch that on. It's just how and what system are they bringing, and is it going to be the right one? You won't know until you fill that team, until you put those players out and you actually start to try and execute those plays. Once you do that, then you get your answer. Anyone who's guessing before then and just taking the credentials that someone has had from another location or another place and team and trying to assign those to the new team is setting it up for disappointment. And then also players who we've seen have a certain type of play. I can tell you right now, it will change and it can change. Look at myself and Barry when you change from a Tom Moore to a Sylvester Croom. You left Wayne Fonts and you went to Bobby Ross. Same players, same talent, same ability, but systematically we offensively change. And I can only speak about my time, but I'm sure during the other times and iterations that they've had different people come in, they've had the same challenges.
All right, well, and that's a great point. I swear you're reading my rundown here, Herman, because the next point is I do think it's going to be a subtle change versus a dramatic change. But when you played, I mean, anyone that's followed the game and saw how the offense changed, we saw a different style, a different attack by the offense. How did that impact you or your teammates having to make those adjustments? And does that slow the offense down, or does it just change things during that learning curve?
It's a really good question because when we had Wayne Fonts and Tom Moore, the head coach and the coordinator, um, we had to go over to basically Bobby Ross and Sylvester Croom. When we did that, the offense changed. They didn't want to have the balance attack that we had before. Barry was going to always get his touches in Wayne Fonts and Tom Moore's system. But we were also going to use guys like Brett Perriman, Johnny Morton, Dave Sloan. We were going to make sure we used all of our weapons that were available. And we created matchup problems because people could not isolate us, nor could they stack the box against Barry, contrary to what a lot of people think that everyone loaded the box and let us kind of run wild. They didn't do that. They had to account for us. And then when Coach Ross and his team came in, Sylvester Croom, they wanted to be run heavy, but they wanted more of a power running game. That was more of a power running game with Sylvester Croom and Bobby Ross. They wanted to, run between the tackles. They wanted to make sure we ran from the 5 yard in or 10 yard line in. We wanted to make sure that, we weren't going to let Barry bounce outside with a chance of possibly losing yardage or anything like that. So they needed downhill runners. So they would pull them out. So you look at that, his impact, you look at his touchdown totals, they went down dramatically. You look at my touchdown totals and contribution, my yards per catch, my impact and all those things got affected by it quite a bit. And so that became more problematic. That became more problematic than anything.
All right. Well, that you mentioned everybody in that wide receiver room. Brett Perryman, a young Johnny Morton, David Sloan. You guys were an exceptional receiving group. What made you guys so good together? Because you guys put up some prolific numbers in the receiving game.
It was just the fact that you had an OC that knew how to dial it in. He knew how to leverage everyone that was there. Not necessarily creating a hierarchy, but as much as an opportunistic coaching system, meaning if you stack the box, we're going to torch you over the top. If you decide to play in the secondary, then we're going to run, and then Barry's going to destroy people in space when you try and tackle him one-on-one if you don't load the box. So, it's leveraging what you have and really understanding it's not necessarily about your system, but the flexibility of your system. Can it adjust to the personnel that you have versus saying it's hard-coded? Players have to do this, and I have to go get players to make my system work. And if they don't work, then I got to get rid of those players. And that was the Bobby Ross, Morningweg, Matt Millen. That era came in and said, we have our own philosophy. We're going to get rid of players, regardless of their talent, to go find players that kind of fit the mold, whether proven or unproven. And from then, it could never get traction again because we took a lot of time building up to that, just like you see with the current line staff. We had taken some time after 91, went through some iterations and OCs and quarterbacks and different schemes, and then we finally hit it, and then they dismantled it. And so I can tell you, so you can break a system just by bringing in the wrong personnel that's going to lead it.
Yeah, well, that 95 season was an incredible season. I mean, you and Brett Perryman, if I'm not mistaken, were the first two receivers on the same team to ever have 100 yards receiving in one season. And I still remember that, watching you guys accomplish that and being so proud of the Lions and everything that happened with that. Do you have any special memory from a game that season or a practice with you and Brett or Johnny or anything like that?
No, just remembering how in tune we were. We were ultra competitive, but we were all brothers, right? We were all sitting there looking and wanting to get it done. I felt bad for Scott Mitchell because he always had one of us in his ear saying we're open, and we legitimately meant it because we felt that we were uncoverable and that you couldn't cover us one-on-one. And if someone did have double coverage, we already knew that somebody was open. Someone was always open. It's just finding the right guy, hoping the protection holds up. And then when you have a guy like Barry, I always tease people and I say, you know what, you guys are lucky. You all got to see Barry play live. And I say, see his best runs. When you're blocking and doing your job, you don't get to see what he's doing back there until after the play is over. And then I knew I had a job well done because I would sit back and go, if I saw that happening, then that means I probably wasn't blocking. And when I would have to go back and say, is that what took place behind me? Okay. Now see why everyone is all excited about what Barry Sanders did. And so those are the special moments I had. And playing with a guy like Scott Mitchell, who was grossly underrated and I think not really appreciated for his abilities and what he really brought to our offense. If you look at 94 through 97, and just what he was able to accomplish and what we did offensively, I think they would be impressed with him as a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean that 95 season was pretty incredible for him as well. He threw for more than 4,000 yards, got the ball to you and Brett Perryman as well as Johnny Morton. That was a very good season for all of you guys. So let's talk about the current receiving core then. You know, you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams, both of the top two guys getting the headlines. You know, Sam Laporta is there at tight end. Then you've got newcomer and Isaac Tesla. And you got Khalif Raymond, who may be coming back. That's five very capable receivers. It seems like five very different type of skill sets. You know, we know St. Brown with the hands. We know Jamison Williams with the speed. But beyond those two things, is there something that you see that makes this receiving core so dynamic, so good, and maybe so difficult to defend?
I think they have the components that we had, and that was you have a set of skilled wide receivers who all do something different. But when you place them all together, they work in unison and they work in a very complementary way as long as you can dial up the play. So what becomes most critical when you have a receiving unit, running backfield with the running backs, quarterback, a tight end, is the OC. They become the most critical most critical person that is out there that's commanding and controlling it. And here's why. When you look at how do you assemble all those without exclusion, how do you get all those players involved and maximize what they bring without defeating them because of your system? And if you're willing to be flexible and you are a true offensive coordinator that knows how to take those ingredients and create a different recipe, you may not be dialing up the same meal you had in another location because you have different ingredients. And that's the way I try and get people to say they're not, you can't be you're not they change restaurants and they're not the same chef, right? Because someone's giving them different ingredients to work with. But if you know how to make food and you know how to make it taste good, then you can work with anything that's coming out of the cupboards. And that's what I think the Lions need to have in their OC, the new one that's coming in with Coach Drew. But I will say this, when you look at that receiving room, what makes them special, as you said, St. Brown, he's crafty. He has skill sets. He's a leader. He's dependable and reliable. Jamison Williams, speed, deep threat, big playmaker, can run away from people and make the short gain and take it the distance. Tesla, he's a big body receiver that can win the challenge and contested catches and the matchups. He can give you downfield disadvantages, especially against certain defensive coverages. Sam Laporta works the seam. Then you got your running backs out of the backfield who both can be contributors to the running game or the receiving game. They can do both, right? So this is a very good offense for this league right now. So that's why it's disappointing if they have less than double-digit wins and if they're not part of that. Who's going to win, not just NFC North, but where do they fall in terms of postseason and what are their chances and who they got to go through or who has to come through them. So that's what I'm looking at with this team. The coordinator, all I just say is this, man, you're going to either make it fun or you're going to be intimidated because you're not doing enough. And that's what, I'm going to kind of be keeping my eyes on.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are excited to kind of see what Drew Petzing's going to do and hoping for something that looks more like 2023, 2024 than what we saw in 2025. Obviously, there's a lot of components that go into what we saw. It wasn't just one thing. I do want to say with wide receiver, Herman, I know on your show you went around and you ranked the top receivers in each division. You went all around, looked at all the teams. And I know the NFL is very different today than it was in the 90s, but I have to ask, is there a wide receiver in the NFL today whose game even somewhat is similar to the type of game and style that you played back in the 90s?
Wow. It's hard to say. What I was blessed with is I came out of college and I wasn't a one-dimensional wide receiver. Even though I was a big, tall wide receiver, I played across the board. So I could play in the slot, I could play the X, I could play the Z, I could play the wing, I could go down on goal line. And because of my size and my physical stature, it allowed me to have a wide range. And then also being tall and having length, I have radius. And that gives a greater margin of error, both high, low, outside my perimeter than quarterbacks are used to having. And so it's watching those players today. I don't see anyone that's being asked to dominate over the top, that's being asked to go and make the routine circus catch or the contested catch uh, off your feet with body position in the air. Those receivers don't seem to really exist anymore. It's either the one-handed sideline catch or it's a great diving catch or something like that. But just looking at guys that physically just dominate and just say, you know what, just put it near me, throw it up to me, make those type of plays. You're just not seeing that on a regular basis. You will see some people high point the catch and do those things, maybe break a tackle and those things, but no one that you say that's part of their game. That's what they're going to do every game. And if you do this, then they're going to make you pay for it in this way. It just doesn't seem to exist that much. So I'd say no. I know that's a
Okay.
long answer to get there, but it's just the evolution of the receivers changed a little bit more than what it was and where it was going, because you start to see the Calvin Johnsons, you saw the Randy Mosses, you saw even Larry Fitzgerald and some of these other who were bigger guys, but they were playing all across the board. Now they're very they're very, I won't say typecast, but they have a very specific role, and they don't typically seem like they break that mold. And if they do, it's just for a moment or an advantage that they see on film.
All right. All right. That's a great answer because my best friend and I were trying to come up with anybody. We couldn't come up with anybody. And so I'm glad to hear from you that, hey, I wasn't that far off base. And you also you didn't mention that, weren't you like the high jump holder out of Virginia? Like you had some ups. And so
Oh yeah.
that was one other part of your game that also made you such a dangerous red zone target.
I played basketball. I was an extreme dunker. Like if I don't say that and say that lightly or to pat myself on the back, but playing like literally with my head at or above the rim was what I did. I was a 7'2", 7'3" high jumper with very little training and skill set. I know how to control my body in the air. So whether I'm on my feet are on the ground or whether I'm off the ground, my hand positioning and all those things stay pretty steady and pretty comfortable. So it's amazing how all those different things I'm able to bring into one sport and then leverage those to an advantage, and then also give me kind of a blueprint, if you will, of skill sets, and then seeing that be executed and evolve over time. Once I came in the '90s to see, like I said, Randy Moss, and then to see Calvin Johnson, and then so on and so forth. You got the AJ Greens and those guys that would come in, and so it was that's what I enjoyed. I had hops. So Matt, I'm telling you, I can come in leaning sideways like Jordan if you want. I could rock the boat. I could catch it off the rim. I could touch the top of the almost handprint up near the top of the backboard like legit like. So my vertical, they brought in the vertical machine when you do like the combine test, and I know that's coming up. I
Yep.
jumped up, and they unless they were going to take the rack off of the thing, I'd already touched higher than they could actually raise it. So, you know, that's what it is, man. So I got to give myself a little kudos right there and say, you know what? I don't know if they make them like that anymore. I mean, they make some fast guys. They make some guys that can do some pretty cool things in and out of breaks. But, you can never take that dog and that beast out of the mentality it takes to be a wide receiver, especially at an ultra successful level and dominant level. You got to feel like you can defeat and win in every situation, not just situations that are comfortable to you.
Well, and that's something you did because let's talk about some of these recognitions you've had in your time. I mean, we all know you are a member of Pride of the Lions with Detroit. You are a member of the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. You're a member of the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame. And now this year in 2026, you are going to be officially inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. Herman, what does that honor mean to you, and how did you feel when you got the news?
All I know is it's always an accomplishment that starts with the team, and I'm always so appreciative. I called a few of my teammates and thanked them for helping me be able to accomplish this award that they're a part of it, especially like the other receivers, the linemen. Ray Roberts, a really good friend of mine, Sean Moore, my quarterback. Johnny Wilson, Derek Dooley, like the other guys that were on the other side of the ball. So you you recognize that, but then when you look at it from the individual standpoint, it's just it makes me proud because it means I finished at every level. It means that I accomplished the goals that I set. Every level I've left out of, I've left with being on top. at some point, owning the records that were there for the individual position, being able to have the highest level of accolades for my position and things of that nature. And so that's been accomplished at every single one of those levels. And they've all come with challenges early on in my career, but then seeing that I was able to overcome. And it was almost identical in each way, from high school and not being a starter, being predominantly a kicker, and then getting an opportunity to become a tight end and a receiver. College, sitting out, getting redshirted, and then sitting on the bench until my end of my sophomore year after my redshirt year. And then a guy gets injured. I go in, I light up Penn State. All of a sudden, I'm a starter, and then I'm an All-American. I lead the nation. I get first-round draft pick. Terrible my first year with Detroit, and not really getting a lot of opportunities. The confidence level is low from them. And then coming back, having one great catch in the playoffs, and then from then going a 7-year stretch. That is one of the most dominant, if not second or third dominated playing in my era than when I played. So I feel good about that, but because I had just tremendous teammates, I had the people that were around me that really wanted to win and set the example.
Well, that's awesome. I know I, among many others in the state of Michigan, will be tuning in. That's December 8th in Atlanta, Georgia, and that's quite an honor. Herman, congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And so I know we've already mentioned your podcasting at the top. You also do a lot of charity work, though, as well, as I've met with you a couple of times. The Tackle Life Foundation. Can you tell the listeners a little bit more about that and what you do there?
So I've always been philanthropic. Coming in '91, I've always been supportive of Michigan communities. Really supporting youth is really my foundational component, because I know that's the area where we're most impressionable, and we're wanting to replicate. We want to emulate and try and replicate what we see. So I want to be that example, that shining example of what that looks like, and that takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of saying no to a lot of things that a lot of people succumb to too easily. And then from there, I wanted to get full tilt into a foundation. So even though I had a private foundation during my playing years, I got into creating a 501c3 called the Tackle Life Foundation in 2016, and got our official 501c3 status. And then from there, just went on to create youth development programs, entrepreneurship programs, looking for ways to support mental health services, because that's such a big prevalent thing that gets not talked about enough. Making sure that people have access to that, in particular our first responders, our law enforcement, teachers and educators, and our students. And then from there, continuing to work with other things that I'm passionate about, like cancer research and pediatric cancer, and just anything that will empower and help youth is really where I'm driven, and my team. So we make that a part of every foundational thing that I do, whether it's in my personal life or professional business life. We make charity and community outreach a pivotal part of it.
That's really cool. And folks, if you want more information, go to tacklelife.org. You can see for yourself all the different things Herman's doing there. And you talked about, business side. I think we've talked about this before. You've called yourself a serial entrepreneur. You are into a lot of things. You're helping others in business. You're doing things for yourself. It's my understanding that you're starting a Whatnot channel now. Is that what's coming up next for you? Tell me about that.
It's an interesting platform, because a lot of people will see it, and it's this high pressure selling and all this stuff that's going on. And I'm an innovator. I'm a disruptor. I like to get in and see where people may be doing something, but there may be this blind spot that they're missing. And while it's there for people to go in and sell all kind of things, and for those to come in and try and get discounts and try and pick things up and flip stuff and cards and breaking and all that, that's fine. There's a place for it. But I also want to get in there with the nostalgia. I want to get in there with the storytelling. I want to get in and talk about some of the things that I've collected along the way. And then I'm encouraging and trying to work with professional athletes and some others, which is another part of this endeavor. And while we're working with this platform, but it's not just this one, there's several other ones that they'll see us popping up on. And what we're trying to do is get storytelling there. We're trying to bring a different touch point with the fan base, with celebrities, with athletes, with people that they think sometimes are out of reach. But then also, how do we take and dust off, or get out of our basement and get out of these storage units all this great part of our history and our story, and a part of these organizations that we're part of, and stop letting it die there. Bring it out to the forefront. And if we're not going to use it, let's figure out a way we can monetize it, whether it's for your charity, whether it's for your own personal revenue or whatever. But let's share that with the fan base. Let's share that with people so they can have a piece of that unique piece of history, not this mass produced, not this mass manufactured, not this rinse and repeat, and you and 15,000 other people got the same thing. This is a unique piece of history if you truly are a fan. And so that's what I'm going to be doing on mine. We'll slow the pace down. You can get your favorite food, your favorite beverage, whatever you want. Come in, we'll talk a little bit. We'll do some of the quick breaks and all that stuff. That'll be a part of our segment. But the storytelling piece, the sitting there and talking like we're doing right here in the chat session. But then also when I put something up there, you get to hear the history and the story behind it. So when you have that piece or you acquire that piece, you go, wow, this is one of a kind. This is truly a collectible. And it has value that sometimes will reach beyond just what you can buy.
Nice. Well, Herman, where should people look for you on that? How should they find you if they're interested to kind of tune in and find out what's going on?
Yep. So you can always go to my social channels. You can check me out at anything that you see my name on that is official on, on X, on Meta, on IG. You can find me there, on LinkedIn for my business side of it. But then also, if you go to these channels like Whatnot, you can find me at Hanging with Herman, and that's going to be it. And that'll probably be what I'll have across the other platforms as well. But you go to Hanging with Herman, come hang out, come have a good time. There's something there for everyone. The young kids, for the older heads. For those who are just there because they just want to break bread or sit there and have some shared time, and that's what it's all about. No high pressure situation. So don't let Whatnot scare you if you used to seeing some of the fast paced stuff they're doing there. But this isn't. We're coming in a different way.
All right, now I'm going to bring something else up, and now people are going to start wondering, do you ever sleep? Because you are involved in so many things, but I just realized Detroit Lions Legends basketball is starting up here soon. You, Rob Rubik and company, you guys tour around the state of Michigan. You help some local communities along the way, raise money doing that. Can you remind the listeners what that's all about?
Oh my goodness! Now you're getting into the things that really make my heart sing. So again, first responders and our law enforcement and state troopers, local law enforcement, people who are just there protecting and educating our kids, our educators. Like we're going into those communities. I've been doing this for now my 31st year. I started when I came here with the Lions, and I've never stopped doing it because it means that much. And it's going around to 20 plus cities over a couple month of period of time, and we literally go top to bottom, east to west in our state, and we travel to raise money in communities for those individuals and those groups that I just mentioned, and we do that for their causes, not ours. And in that way, we make it entertaining. We talk to loyal Lion fans, the young not Lion fans, the ones that were just born and don't realize their parents are going to convert them to Lion fans. And then we do autograph signings and sessions. We take pictures. We bring them out on the floor, and we make it kind of a Harlem Globetrotter, but put it more Detroit Midwest based flavor and style to it. And we come out and have a great time. You mentioned Rob Rubik, former Lion, Corey Schlesinger, Scott Conover, George Jameson. Occasionally we'll get guys like Joik Bell. We got Brock, who is considered the most handsome center ever in the history of the NFL. That's what he calls himself. But we come out and we have that type of fun, man. And you know what, Matt, I have to say this. You've been coming out and you've been supporting a lot of the things that we do. You do a lot in your community to bring attention to those. And I want to say this to your listeners. And I want to say this directly to him. He's been trying to get me to come on here quite a bit. And I know I played football, but I forget, or some things may happen. And I haven't done it the way I wanted to do it with them, because I love talking to you. I love coming on the show with you. You've been nothing but consistent, the ideal model of consistency. And I appreciate just your professionalism and everything that you've done. And I just need to make sure people understand what a great person you are as well. So I want to just, again, say that to you, and thank you so much for your patience and waiting on this old head, this OG Lion that keeps saying that he's coming that way. But I promise you, and I want your listeners to hold me to it, that you and I, we're gonna have some regular conversations during the season. Like I said, I absolutely love talking to you. So they're gonna hold me accountable just like you will.
Herman, thank you for those kind words, man. They mean a lot, and that's awesome. I appreciate that. And I got to ask, You talked about your basketball skills. I've seen them firsthand, but I got to say, I don't know if I've seen you dunk in a game. Have you dunked into some of these Detroit Lions Legends games? I see you hitting threes all the time.
20 years ago. I did. I mean, it's just, I got to save some. I got to save the excitement so that when I turn 60 and how many ever years I got left to do this, I'll dunk for my 60th birthday. And you can
Okay.
tell I'm not there yet. I'll say I'm in my 50s. I don't mind saying that, but I play like I'm in my 30s. I have the energy of a 20-some-year-old, but I have the skill set and the wits to know not to go up there trying to attack the rim and get stuck on it in front of all those kids, and that be left with our social media era that we're in. You can't scrub that from the internet. So maybe I'll go dunk a tennis ball next time I'm there.
All
I'll
right.
keep it
Well,
easy and light, and I'll keep you guessing. Can he still dunk? If I dunk the tennis ball, they go, man, I think he can still dunk. And then that way I'll at least keep you kind of curious, just a little bit, just a little curious.
just wondering a little bit. Maybe wait till the second half of the game, something like that. Just get them guessing throughout. I like that. Well, Herman, great connecting with you again. Wishing you well with the basketball tour. Anything I haven't asked, or anything you want to mention before we get out of here?
No, nothing at all other than a lot of optimism for this year's team, the Detroit Lions. I'm very excited about what's happening with Detroit sports in the state of Michigan and also the collegiate sports. We have all the teams. We're a great state for sports. We talk about industry and all those things, but kudos to the teams that have stuck it out and figured out a way to bring in people and keep working to put winners out there. And happy to see Justin is coming back to the Tigers. He's back home.
Yes.
And so it's good to see a lot of the players that stayed around, and it's good to see that our teams are doing very well. And I look forward to going and visiting those during the season. I'm looking forward to taking in more games of other sports other than just the Lions.
Awesome, Herman. Always great talking with you. Thank you for making the time.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Once again, a big thank you to Herman Moore for coming on the show and sharing all that information with us. Folks, another episode will be coming out soon where we hear from a couple other former Detroit Lions players and their NFL Combine experience. So look for that. Big thank you to roasterjack.com. Roasting incredible beans since 99. Visit roasterjack.com. Use the code LIONS. It'll get you 20% off your order. And thank you for tuning in, folks. Please tell your friends and family about the show. Find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, as well as all major streaming platforms. That does include YouTube for the video versions. We'd love to hear your thoughts and reviews. Check out more content and episodes at notthesameoldlions.com. And until next time, stay gritty, my friends.